Now, my next guest is calling for an end to the postcode lottery, which sees some hospitals are still banning family members from visiting patients. Well, Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting says his own experience going through kidney cancer treatment alone due to all the pandemic restrictions was actually the loneliest that he's ever felt, and he joins me now. And loneliness is horrific. I mean, you're recovering, you know, from a horrible illness all by yourself. Must have been horrible.
It was. And first of all, I wouldn't normally do this, but my stepsister, Georgia, absolutely loves you. And
Georgia,
she says,
hello, Georgia.
She wants you to, yeah, I would not normally do it, but honestly, this is the best thing, as far as my family's concerned, the best thing I've done in 7 years as an MP.
Oh, Wes.
And she's a total fangirl. So I've done my job now. I've embarrassed myself in front of the nation.
Absolutely fine.
And it made you blush as well.
No, don't you worry.
But yeah, going back to the more serious point, I mean, it's true. I mean, from the diagnosis right through to going into hospital, I tried to keep a positive mindset because I was told they caught it early, I was going to have my kidney out, but I wasn't going to die. And I kept on sort of trying to keep that at the forefront of my mind. Sure. But it was when I first went in for my biopsy, which was only a day-long procedure, I sort of went and sat next to the bed waiting for a nurse to come, and that was when it really hit me. The whole thing, I think, the whole thing really hit me. And I felt really lonely, quite frightened. I had the same experience when I went in for my surgery. And, of course, the moment the nurses come in and make you feel relaxed and at ease, that makes a massive difference. But it is genuinely the loneliest I've ever felt in my entire life. And I think for my family, who weren't able to be with me, it was arguably harder because at least I knew where I was, I knew what was going on, I knew what the next stages were, and I was surrounded by people who were reassuring me. But for my partner, Joe, for my parents, they just weren't able to be there. And I think for them, it was even harder than it was for me.
It's such a scary time anyway, you're absolutely right. And we know that during the pandemic and now, you know, the NHS is under enormous strain, and that kind of goes without saying. But if people can come in now, they can help. You know, they can help. Friends and family can take some of the burden away.
That's exactly right. I mean, what I saw on the ward I was on were brilliant nurses, but overstretched. So on the day I was being discharged, there was a patient having a very severe mental health episode. All the staff rightly focused on them, but that meant that anyone else who needed help, it wasn't there. Actually, ahead of coming on this morning, a friend of mine messaged about the birth of his son. His wife was in hospital on her own. He couldn't visit. She ended up staying in hospital longer because she developed an infection because she wasn't able to go to the toilet. There was no one on hand to help. So as well as being really great for our own morale as patients, really important for the mental health of family members who often go through a really tough time when family members are in hospital. There is this practical thing of helping someone to go to the toilet, going for a bit of a walk with them around the grounds, getting them some water if they need it. So I think family members in a stretched NHS where there just aren't enough staff can be of real help.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're not talking about... You know, you don't want, like, 10 people round the bed. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah,
that would be getting in the way, of course.
Yeah.
We understand that. But it just seems to be, you know, either something or nothing, and depending on where you live. It's this postcode thing, isn't it? I can't understand why it's not all joined up.
So the government has said they want full family visitation rights restored,
thing, it has to be
but it's just not happening everywhere. And I'm not trying to beat up individual trusts or name and shame them, because I think hospitals will say, look, it's about infection control. It's about making sure we're managing the risk of patients, particularly with COVID still around, the risk of getting into the hospitals. But there are ways of dealing with that. I mean, I do think the government should bring back free testing, especially for visitors going into hospitals, so people know. But also, we've got to deal with the staffing challenge in the NHS. And this is a much bigger, longer-term challenge. You've got a record-high backlog. So this is much bigger than family visiting rights.
No, it absolutely
But it's why the government has got to get a grip on that. And again, on a cross-party basis, there have been MPs calling on the government just to have a workforce plan, you know, saying how many staff we need, how we're going to fill them over what time period. They won't even do that yet. And I think the Treasury's the big block on that, because they're worried if you've got the numbers and if you've got the list of the staff you'll need, you're going to have to fund it and you're going to have to...
But that's the only way to sort it out. That doesn't make any sense. Do you think what happened to you, going through cancer and going through all of the treatment, has it made you better at your job? Do you think?
It's definitely... I mean, I wouldn't recommend this for future health secretaries or shadow health secretaries, but I've done a lot of mystery shopping on the NHS. I've had GP appointments, scans, surgery, telephone consultations, in person. So I've had quite a lot of experience of the NHS. So that makes me well placed to be the patient's champion, which is what I think my job is to be. If I'm the country's next health secretary, as I hope to be, that's the job I want to do, to champion the interests of patients. It's been a real insight into what's brilliant about the NHS, but also what's not working. And I think it's no coincidence, actually, that at the moment we've got the lowest levels of patient satisfaction in the NHS since 1997. But when you ask the public who they trust most in society, nurses are right up the top.
Absolutely.
Doctors are right up the top. Politicians, I'm afraid to say, are right down the bottom.
Well,
but, you know, that's a different story.
It's a trust issue. I mean, you look at the headlines today.